Now that we've developed reusable navigation code that we can reuse in our new _subject.php file, we're ready to work on the form that's going to go inside here in the page area. And I'm going to go ahead and create a new h2 tag here, and we're going to say add subject. I'm also going to put in a br tag that's going to go after the form, and we'll put a link that's just going to simply go back to the content.php, and that'll just say cancel. So now we have a way to get out of this as well. So we have a link to get into the add subject, and cancel will get us back out. So what about the form that we're going to put in there? Let me go ahead and paste in some code for an HTML form. Let's take a look. What I've got in there, let me break this onto a new line so it's easier for you to see. My browser's wrapping a lot of this. We're going to send this form to create_subject.php. That's a page that doesn't exist yet, and we'll create that. It's going to use the post method, and the form is going to have subject name, which is going to have our menu name as the name. The value is nothing to start with because it's brand new. Then we're going to have the position. This is going to be a pull-down menu, a selection. Right now, we're going to make the only option that's available to it the number 1. We'll come back and revisit this in a minute. But this is a basic selection tag where we'll be able to pull down and pick a list of numbers. Then we've got visible, and that's radio buttons because it's either on or off. So if it's not visible, it'll be at 0, and if it is visible, the value will be 1. And finally, we'll have our submit with the value equals to add subject. So that'll work for us. That'll give us just a basic form. Let's go ahead and save that document. You can go ahead and pause the movie if you need to copy that down, but we're basically just going to have the subject name, the position, and visible as a very simple form on a page. And let's load that up and see what it looks like. New subject, and there we go. So we've just got a basic HTML form here, nothing special. So we can go ahead and click and select. We can type in the name of our subject, whatever, can be anything we want. And of course, if we hit add subject, nothing will happen because it'll send it to a page that doesn't exist. We'll work on that next. And cancel will successfully take us back to just content.php. We've now built a form for ourselves. Let's take another look at that form. What would we like to have happen with position here? It seems to me that we have one of two choices. Either the only option we could make available for the position could be whatever the next position in line is, which will force us to put this at the end of the chain, or an even nicer feature, but much harder for us to program, would be for us to create something where we could pick a position and it would insert it in the right place. Let's say there were 5 subjects and we put it in at position number 3. It would also move the current subjects that are 3, 4, and 5 down 1. Now we could program something that would be a lot more advanced that would, let's say if we had 5 subjects and we picked the value 3 for our new subject, it could take the existing subjects 3, 4, and 5 and push them all down 1 and make them 4, 5, and 6, and then put this one in at number 3. Now that's a little more advanced, and once we're able to learn how to update records, we'll be able to do something like that. But for now, let's punt on it a little bit and save some of that. But let's go ahead and think about that as functionality that we're going to want. We have the ability to go ahead and know how many subjects we have. So let's go ahead and make use of that knowledge. We can go ahead and put in some PHP right here that's going to make a subject set equal to get all subjects. Remember I told you we might have use for this function a little later on? Well, here's an example. Because we refactored our code and we put it off in our functions, we can now get a list of all the subjects again. And we can even get the subject count to know how many subjects there are. And we do that by using a command called mysql numRows. That tells us how many rows were returned in this result set. Remember, in this case, we're returning a set of rows, a collection of a whole bunch of rows, not just a single subject. Be clear on that. We're returning a resource that has many rows in it. And instead of doing mysql fetch array, instead we're saying, resource, tell me how many rows you have. So we're not actually looking at the content because we don't care about what the content is at this point. We just want to know how many there are, and then we'll know how many of these option value things we should kick out. So now that we have subject count, let me take away the S and just make it subject count singular. Then I can actually do a for loop. And we saw how to do those. count at the start is going to equal to 1. And then we're going to keep testing, and we want to keep going until count is less than or equal to our subject count. And then let's do count plus plus. Our loop may not be perfect, but let's go ahead and do it this way and see what we get, try it out, and come back and improve it. I'm going to cut option out of there and now make it part of my PHP. I'll need to escape the double quotes. There we are. And instead of putting in just the number 1, let's now drop in the value of count. And I'll take that a second time, and we'll put it here. Now we have a dynamically generated form. We have all of these values coming to us dynamically from PHP. Oh, I need a semicolon here at the end. So let's go ahead and try this and see what it gives us back. When I reload the page, position, and sure enough, I have 3 subjects. 1, 2, 3. But wait a minute, I'm actually adding 1. So I need 1 more subject than that because I want to potentially make this the 4th subject. So let's modify our loop a little bit. And we're going to say that either count equals 0 if we want to just drop it down 1, or I'm going to make it more obvious to me by saying subject count plus 1. And that's going to remind me, and I can even put a note in here and say subject count plus 1 because we are adding a subject. Okay, that'll remind me for later. Now we come back over and reload the page, and you'll see that we have the ability to put it in 1, 2, 3, or 4. Now, as I mentioned, later on we'll have enough knowledge that we can actually update the other subjects if we were to give this a value that was already taken by another subject. But for now, it's going to be enough that we've dynamically generated a form, which is something that we could never do with HTML alone. And now we're ready to have that receiving page, the create_subject.php, where we're going to process the form and actually create the subject into the database. Let's do that next.